sent those earlier. Need a motion to either correct them or to approve them.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. I want to welcome Paul Taylor back to the committee,
Here we go.
back in this room. Do we have any public comment? Okay. On business revenue and expense update?
So August non-property tax revenue was slightly more than we expected. Local option sales taxes were about $32,000 more than the same period last year, and sales taxes were about $21,000 higher than last year in the same period. We're still seeing a sort of 12-month depression on non-property tax revenue. If you look at the average over 12 months, it's still lower than it was basically since May of .24. But it's creeping up a little bit now. For fiscal year '25 non-property tax revenue, it averaged about 0.5% less than the same period in the previous year. We've collected $97,000 less in non-property tax revenue than we had at the same time last year. Property tax collections are in line with the same period last year. We've collected about $232,000 more than at the same approximate time, and there is just a bit more than $1 million left in property tax left to collect for tax year '24, not tax year '25. We haven't posted that yet. You'll notice on that property tax layout sheet, if you've got it, it's got a big yellow box. If you recall, last time we transitioned to Tyler to collect property tax, and there was a period of time in there where we couldn't actually capture the weekly data, and that's why that's there. Year-to-date general fund operating expenses are under the budgeted amount. You've got a little report here that's summarized by department and sub-department as that's appropriate. You can get, if you would like a lot more detailed copy of that, I will email it to you, but I didn't want to print 8 or 10 40-page copies of something that you might not want to dig into. I will tell you that some people at this table have asked for those documents and have received them, so that's fine. After 2 months, you could expect us to be about 16.6% through our budget. We're at about 15% of budgeted amounts, and so you could say that we are operating under the budgeted amount. But you also know that there are one-time expenses that pop up in here that just happen throughout the year. But it's a good thing to be able to say that we're operating under our expected budgeted amount.
Any concerns, Mayor or Nathan?
Not at the moment.
Cool. Now, do we, like on getting back to this report with the taxes, do we know why we're like $200,000?
Why we've collected $200,000 more than we thought we did?
No,
I mean, look.
like a year ago, we collected, no, you're right, because we did collect.
Yeah.
$200,000.
The one on the left is the current year, and the one on the right is last year at the same time period. The primary reason we've collected more is the assessment values went up.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
And we will collect more next year because our assessments have gone up as well. Or at least I hope we do if people pay their property taxes.
And we'll have more property to collect on.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Yes. Questions?
There's a couple of items that we've got that I saw reading through here where we're over budget in some different areas.
Mm-hmm.
Have we been working on some, I guess I'm anticipating there'll be some budget amendments where we're maybe moving some people, or that may be internal enough that we don't have to do that?
Some of this, like if you like, for example, on page 3, you look at, well, and I know some of what you're talking about, but also if you look on page 3, like self-funded health insurance, those expenses need to be actually allocated to the correct departments, and they do that a couple of times a year.
Okay.
And then there are some others where there were some one-time expenses that hit just in that one in the first 2 months, which have made those numbers higher than perhaps they should be. And then there are also some payroll expenses in some of these departments that are running hot, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out why that is. In some cases, it's because the position was not in the correct department, or the position may not have been accounted for when we did the budgeting process. And we're meeting with some of those folks in a couple of weeks to try to get that sorted out.
Okay.
So,
Will we expect that for next, for the next month to have those, or some proposals on adjustments to that? Or?
we're going to see what we need to do. If we need to move the position, or if we need to do a budget amendment,
Okay.
we'll get that. It may not be next month, Paul. It may be, and also in some of those that you're talking about, it's very seasonal.
Right.
And so it actually may, some of it may shake out, but we'll see.
Other questions? Okay. Number one, reallocation of $21,700 from street maintenance operating supplies to street department resurfacing.
Now, the mayor may correct me on this, but the way I understood this, this was something that we would have done ourselves if we had the trailer at the time to do it. But the work had to be done, and so consequently, they contracted to get this portion done. So that $21,700 is essentially coming out of the street department's asphalt, supplies account, and they use that money to pay for a contract.
Instead of us using it for supplies, we're using it for contract, just switching over the line item.
So
Have we
now-
not discussed that before?
I mean, we've got the trailer now, so if we had this problem now, we would do it ourselves.
Yep.
But this was before that happened, so.
I was thinking at the last city council meeting, we
We
dealt with
did
it.
a budget for the trailer,
Okay,
and so now we have the trailer, and so now we'll be able to do that. We'll be able to mobilize as opposed to having to contract it out.
So the trailer is here now, for the asphalt.
I don't know if it's here yet, it's been ordered. I have to check with Austin. They're working on the plan to do roads that are just requiring overlay.
So how will that affect the supplies line item? That almost 22,000 seems significant.
There was 650,000 in that supplies line, and I think about $500,000 of that was thought about as being asphalt. And so if you take 20,000 out of $500,000, I mean,
And we would have done that, it would have cost us that to do that if we would have done it ourselves. We're just not doing it ourselves, we're just moving the money over to contract area as opposed to supplies.
so that it's still done, it's just, it's just not, we're not doing it, we're paying someone to do it.
And no impact on the
No.
fund balance?
No.
no, it's just, no.
Right.
Move we approve.
Second?
Second? Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved. Next, we have proposed budget amendment number 25 to recognize TDEC recycling grant for $192,000.
So this was a grant that we received in fiscal year '25. You guys originally approved a budget amendment in fiscal year '25 to recognize this and then appropriate the money for the expenses. The truck came in, or the equipment came in, it was that shredder truck, wasn't it? Was it? Yeah. The shredder truck came in, but we just now got the money. And so the fun thing about this is it gets to hit fund balance. We're not appropriating any new expenses. It's just replacing money that we spent last year. And this is H&S. This isn't general fund.
Was there a match on this one?
There was, and I can't remember what it was, Paul, but
Okay.
we paid it in
That's
there.
already been paid.
It's already been
in the
paid
prior
out.
I think
fiscal
it
year.
was 80/20.
Yeah.
I think is what it was.
80/20. Okay.
Yeah.
But that match was expended. in-
Yeah, everything was expended last fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
Make a motion to accept.
Johnny's made a motion.
Second.
Jack. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved. 3, proposed budget amendment number 28 to appropriate $125,000 for a legal settlement.
This is a legal settlement. I didn't think to have Lewis here because I'm not for sure how much I can talk about it, but it's from a case that has been going on a few years and came to an agreement through mediation a few weeks ago, and so this is the city's portion of that. And I can get with Lewis to answer any of your other questions. Like I said, I'm not for sure what I can say in an open meeting about it. And the council will have a attorney-client meeting this Thursday. And so any questions you have, I can direct to Lewis to answer those for you.
What is the current budgeted general fund balance?
The fund balance right now, at the moment, or
The budgeted.
Budgeted, what have we budgeted?
we left about 13, it's about 13,
No, it's 15.
yeah, right at 14 point something million is what the budget, what the fund balance was, yeah.
Was what was budgeted for
Yes,
this year?
sir.
And what do we budget for legal items?
Well, we budget quite a bit for legal services. We don't generally budget for legal settlements unless we see one on the horizon, and this one was I mean, the number here jumped around quite a bit.
It did. There was no anticipation on the legal settlement. It was thought that this would actually go to completion in court, but it ended up in mediation and got settled.
So it's been going on, you indicated, for a couple of years, but you thought that the city would not have to pay a settlement
I didn't
at
think it
all?
would go to a settlement. I thought it would be, the trial date for this was next June, and so it would have been whatever at the end of the next fiscal year, start of the next fiscal year, and so
Yeah.
judge ordered mediation last month, and so it was our fiscal year had already started, so we had nothing budgeted for it.
Just the general question, as it relates to the general fund balance.
Mhm.
Are there any other anticipated, I think this is maybe a larger discussion that maybe needs to happen after this, but just to put it out there now, are there any other anticipated major expenses that will hit the general fund balance on the horizon
That are unbudgeted?
that are unbudgeted?
I think there will probably be some.
Can you quantify that?
Yeah, it's like,
You are of course aware that we had some Parks and Rec stuff that ended up not accounted for entirely in the fiscal year '26 budget. There are
Yes.
some budget neutral budget amendments that will take care of some of that. There are also a couple of other projects that the completion wasn't really accounted for properly. And I wouldn't want to quantify that right now without actually having to look at it. But
Sure.
it's going to be,
we're talking like the Senior Citizen Center or
the senior center was the
Campbell
one that,
or
yeah, the senior center was the one that we managed to get most of it covered by some budget
somebody,
amendments,
yeah.
some budget neutral budget amendments. And then there are a couple of other capital projects that are going to pull in a couple of, again, I hate to just, without looking at it, I hate to give you just a number, but it's going to be, it's not an insignificant amount of money, but we're talking probably less than $750,000.
Okay.
But now, if you run out and said Nathan said, I'm going to.
No, and the question isn't to nail you down on anything, it's just for us to start thinking about the impacts of what's coming down the pipe as we make decisions.
Right.
And it'd be helpful, and I know that is something that's in flux as you move through time and as we get to the end of some of these projects and not knowing what the true cost to close the project would be.
Right.
But having some idea of that, I think would be helpful when we're already sitting very thin on fund balance as it's compared to our general fund expenses. So is that something that we could look at maybe next time is some anticipated
Yeah.
drawdowns on fund balance?
Yes, and of course, our goal in all of this, if it's possible, when these things are cropping up, is to make it a budget neutral, do
Sure.
a budget amendment to take care of that if we can. Some of this we'll be able to take care of that way, and some of it there's going to be a little draw on fund balance. On the other hand, there are some expenses that were budgeted that I think are not going to be as, which is nice, gives you,
Sure.
a cushion. But, we'll try to get that together, Paul.
So is this because something wasn't thought of that we're about to do, or it was something that Tyler Munis would have?
Well,
No.
this particular one that we're talking about here was an unanticipated expense.
Okay,
I think there's a couple of categories to look at. One is unanticipated like this is. You don't know where this may settle out at the end, during the fiscal year, or it may go into the next year. And so this is something you gotta deal with, but there are things that we can anticipate and are anticipating. I think it's important for the group to know what's coming down the pipe as we make decisions about fund balance that's thin.
And there are just, admittedly, there are expenses that should have been anticipated that were not.
That's right. There's
So-
that as well. So another category.
Yeah.
Right.
so the 750, that,
He wrote it down. Anyway,
He'll lose it.
I think that's a pretty good, that's the high-end number for things that we may, generally would call them unanticipated or,
I think that's the total amount too. That includes also the new budget neutral amendments we've already made.
right, yes, sir, it
It's
does.
not, it's not an
Yeah.
additional to the budget.
No,
neutral
no,
that we've already
that's
made.
just stuff that's just cropping up, and it's like, okay, this looks like, and as much of that as possible, we're gonna make budget neutral as we come across those.
So back to this specific amendment, do we think we've got 125 identified somewhere to where
No.
this goes away? Or
Not
this
yet.
is hitting?
Yeah, that's just gonna hit fund balance. We're figuring on that one. Now, we may, as we go through, we may find something, but at the moment, it's a draw on fund balance.
But the bottom line is, it's a legal settlement. We got no choice but to pay it. It wasn't anticipated this year. That's why it's not
Right.
budgeted, so,
and probably, if we don't have the settlement, a lawsuit, that a case may be more.
correct.
So I would assume that was why we,
Let's see. Yeah.
I move to approve amendment number 28.
Second.
all right, motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, number C.
Fiscal year 27 budget planning. Now, meetings with our departments are beginning this week, Mr. Mayor, and the council is invited and encouraged to participate in that process. That's going to give them sort of a, I don't think you're necessarily looking for numbers right down the line on that, but you do want them to understand what the needs are going to be from that. So that's one prong of this, is to get council associated or familiar with what some of these, how these departments are operating and what financial demands they may have coming up. And then conversations with Frank and with Mayor Conger and Paul, talked about doing some analysis of some of these requested expenses. Paul put together an excellent budget calendar right here. Paul, do you want to talk
Sure.
about that a little bit? Is that okay with you, Frank?
Mm-hmm, yes.
So, just from being outside the circle looking in for the last couple of years, one of the things that I've noticed is that we really need to get locked in on what the expectations are on the hitting dates on the budget. And we've got an opportunity now through October, November, December to kind of hone in on a couple of things that are opportunities, I think, for us to investigate and kind of go out and see if there's additional revenues to be brought in, some opportunities for restructuring some things, looking at some expenses that may be more efficient ways of doing things in these next couple of months before we get to crunch time, which is the next calendar year. And so as a part of that, one of the things that I've been working on is trying to put together a kind of a priority rubric, a scoring methodology of sorts that could go along with that department heads would use themselves to score. This group or Nathan's office could be the normalization of that scoring. So we could take, for example, you'd have like a 21-point score across 7 different categories with 0 to 3 points per category. And those things could be, is this something that is needed right now? Can it wait till next year, or would it just be great if we had it?
Yeah.
Another category is this legally mandated? Does TCA require us to do this? Are we, does our code require us to do things? Is there a
We're
liability
contractually
out there?
obligated. Are we contractually obligated?
We're contractually obligated? Is there a legal liability that's associated with the project? Going through this rubric and having a real clear kind of definitions on what we're doing, really, I think will help us hone in on what are kind of 3 tiers of priorities. Top tier are the things we're legally mandated to do, that we're required to do by the state as a incorporated city. Tier 2 is like things that a modern city is expected to have. Parks, a planning department, a building and codes department. And then tier 3 are things that are culturally great, that bring high quality of life to the community. But they really start to lay out in that order, and it'll give us, and I think the council and the mayor's office, more information as they go through the budget process in the next year. And in talking to Frank, I see it as, and I always saw it as this committee's role was to provide information to let the decision makers, we don't ultimately make a decision, we make recommendations, but we provide information to them to make the best decision. And so part of that is developing some structure that helps them process this information, where when Councilman Dodd's up there, it's not all on a level playing field. There are certain things that we need to be funding, and there are other things that would be great if we funded, but we need to prioritize that. And so I've laid out in our budget calendar over the next couple of months, really honing in on that budget rubric, and then going through some exercises with the department heads on how they score that. And it may be that we want to go through an example of that and have them score their existing budget, just so we have an understanding before they submit next year, and we can compare apples to apples on what they're doing. But this really follows the budget calendar that we had a number of years ago. And I think it's important, I haven't put specific dates on here, but I think it's important for us to keep these in mind. And if we slip on a date, we understand that we may need to meet again earlier the next month in order to get back on the calendar and get things moving in that order. But it helps keep us accountable, I think, and it helps keep the city accountable and staying on task and on topic.
I think you may end up meeting sometimes more frequently.
Sure.
And I wonder, I don't know, could we have, you might, I was sitting there thinking, do you need a subcommittee at some point on some of this to do? I don't know about that. But are you working on that rubric?
I've got a draft rubric that I intended to send to Ms. Marquisha, but my computer was malfunctioning this morning, so
Okay.
it didn't get
Okay.
out.
Okay.
But yes, I've got a rubric, and I'd happy to share it for information purposes with the group later on today.
Okay.
And we can have some discussions about that at our next meeting, so that you've had a chance to kind of digest it, the mayor's had a chance to digest it, and then we can come back and have deliberations about it at the appropriate time.
Great.
Thank you for working on that.
Yep, yeah.
Any other comments on that? Tyler Munis.
So, unfortunately,
No.
there was a hitch in loading our 2025 property tax. We had a Tyler implementation specialist here 2 weeks ago, and they've worked diligently since then with their technical people. Our folks have been literally working overtime. Mayor, you took my overtime out of the budget. I'm gonna have to use a little bit of it, okay? But we worked with them quite a bit. Our team, along with Tyler's technical team, are continuing to work through loading that file. This morning, right before I walked down, my email beeped, and they're moving along. We anticipate completing that this week. This is relevant, just to be incredibly blunt, for cash flow reasons. We've had the file a month. The county, you guys have probably received your county property tax notices. Our vendor for property tax notices is standing by and ready to mail, but we don't want to mail before we can take the payments. Our tax relief notices are already in the envelopes with the postage on them. They're ready to drop them in the mail. But we thought we'd have this loaded last week. Actually, we thought we had it loaded 2 weeks ago. I told y'all that at the last budget committee meeting. But it really feels like they're getting down to it. And I sent a pretty mean email, for me at least. And I think it shook the lady up because I'm not normally a mean email kind of guy. But so then the transition to Tyler's property tax has necessitated a change in the way that we collect our online property tax. Previously, we'd used a vendor called BAS, Business Information Systems, and they they do a lot of property tax for a lot of cities, but Tyler has their own portal. The terminology that Tyler is using on that portal is different than almost anything you've ever seen trying to pay a property tax. Most people don't know the difference between real property and personal property, and they've got two different boxes, and you have to select the actual one. And so we're working to redesign that portal just a little bit to make it more accessible. And if it comes to it, we may put an intermediate page that just has a brief tutorial on which box you need to check to get the information, because we're getting feedback even on people paying 24 taxes. They're like, I don't know what to do here, but we're working at that. But we are getting those payments in on 24. We know the portal's working. This is the same online portal that we're using now for H&S, or solid waste payments. That's worked really well. The neat thing about it, for Jack and Paul will understand this, of course the mayor, is that as opposed to having to have a human intervention to actually load that and make it hit the general ledger, it does it automatically at the end of every day, which means for reporting and monitoring purposes, it's a lot easier for us to have a little more real-time information. And it also eliminates the ability for a human to introduce an error. And so that's been fun. But we will have, I promise you, we'll get property tax up, and I can email you your own notices if you want me to. That way we can go ahead and get a jump start on getting payments now. Oh, boy. Anyway, that's my Tyler Munis update.
How did you start that up, unfortunately?
Unfortunately.
Maybe never hear that again. Well, thank you. And
Yeah.
we will all be
Thrilled.
We rejoice and be exceeding glad when we get Tyler Munis up and running.
When you get your property tax notice.
I believe we are going to have some kind of budget committee party
Yes.
when Tyler Munis, those two words are not on the agenda. Because it's been on the, literally ever since I've been a part of this esteemed committee. This person I've never met named Tyler
Tyler.
Munis has been on the agenda, so.
Well, I will tell you, so when I got here, the month after I got here, I thought to myself, why did we do this? Because it's a big shift from, and now, here we are, 11 months later, nearly 12, and it is incredibly robust. The way things that integrate together, the ability to do the reporting, it is incredibly capable software, and when we are done, it's just every day. And the other thing is we're getting better. We're checking boxes every day, Dave. I mean, it's like we're fixing to roll out the new portal, and the neat thing about the new portal is that it actually allows job costing if we wanted to do that. So we could know what it costs to do this.
Well, and it is everything in one system as opposed to utilizing 311 operator to input into iWork, then back into 311, and so it's.
Oh, yeah, I'm a big believer. It's just.
It's just taken forever, hadn't it?
Yeah, it's been a journey.
Well, that was one of the things that I realized was a priority when I got in here, is to, at least on the financial side, push, get this done. Because we were operating in two systems, sometimes three if you want to count it that way, and trying to get them all into one has been, I mean, it's
It's been a heavy lift.
yeah. So,
And we're a big business. And
Yeah.
It's hard to change a big business.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, both of y'all, for the work of Tyler Munis. Anything else to bring before the Budget Committee?
Mr. Chairman, if it'd be all right, do we have an update on the audit? I know that's another source of subject potentially, but.
So we had, I mean, just to be,
Unfortunately,
no, not unfortunately. I'm feeling really, really, really good. We're looking October 15th, October 17th for an issue date. We spoke with them last couple of weeks, have been working intently. I think I may have reported to some of y'all, I know we talked with the audit committee about this. We initially had some trouble, quite a bit of trouble with interfund balances. Part of that had to do with the way that the pool cash system worked. The city of Jackson had previously simulated pool cash with due tos and due froms. And it was confusing as all get out doing it that way. But when they moved to Tyler Munis with actual pool cash, nobody told some of our accounting staff that we were doing pooled cash, and that created a bunch of errant actual due tos that shouldn't have been there. That makes, and so there was cash all over the place as far as in those interfund balances. And then we're getting there, Dave.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
No,
telling you. And then this last week, we discovered that quite a bit of our medical expenses had been double booked, again, because of a change in process. For example, we were at one point underreporting about $2.5 million in cash. And that's not something you can just look over. Yeah. And we got that cleared up last week. And so now, even though we've been doing those odds and ends, variance reports and all of that stuff, now that's really the last little bits of things that they're going back and double checking some things right now. And they're hoping to have it in review next week and issue by the 15th or the 17th.
So the medical expense, is any of that in this?
It is. If you looked on page 3.
Self-funded health insurance?
If you looked on page 3, you'll see there's a $600 and something thousand. So when we switched to payroll, previously the city's expense was not part of the payroll process. And now they call it a benefit in payroll. And where it should have just been, it should have been hitting a liability, and then we would net that out based on what the actual expenses were. Mm-hmm. They were hitting it was hitting the actual expense lines for health benefits on each department. And then in addition to that, when the claims came in, they were netting that out against the liability, and then the giant journal entry they were doing at the end of the year, they assumed that all the expense was actually cash, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of major process changes that need to happen, because that doesn't need to be happening just once a year, first of all. Yeah. Because you get to the end of the year and you're thinking, I got to get this clear, and they just do one big journal entry. Well, that's a mess. Yeah. And then, now, the fun part about this, Frank, is that this process that I just described that was causing us problems in the FY24 audit has continued to this day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, Brandon, you paying attention?
Yes, sir. TikTok and every bit of it.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Now, the upshot to this is that we've isolated where this is happening, and so reversing some of this is going to be a lot easier, because I spent 2 hours on a Zoom at one point, and I looked up at the Zoom. This was last Monday. I looked up at the Zoom, and 3 of the 5 people there had their hands on their but we're getting very close. Who asked me the question? Was it you?
Grateful, regrettably, as well.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
There's the thing is, I was talking to the mayor and Ron Friday, and I'm like, I unloaded a bunch of this on Ron last week, and he said, do you regret taking this job? And I said, we've got great people here, and they're doing hard work. And there are some things to clean up, and there's some process improvements we can make. But everybody's willing, and they're doing a good job when we find this stuff. And a lot of it, it's getting better every day. Is all I can say. So FY25 audit is going to be a bear, but less of a bear than FY24, because we know the mistakes we made in FY24.
Yeah.
So
we ripped a huge Band-Aid off with financial system conversion, bank conversion.
at the same time, why did you do that at the same time?
Well, we knew you were coming.
Right.
Set him up for success.
Yes.
You don't want you to be bored.
Right.
No, I mean, it's like some of this, we're looking at journal entry printouts, and I'm like, why did somebody make this entry? Why did they do this? But but it's coming together, so.
Famous last words.
Yeah.
So, October the 17th.
That's,
He wrote it down.
he wrote it down. That's the date that Malden Jenkins is comfortable giving me right now. And now that will require some pretty hard work on our part. I was here till 6 Friday, which doesn't sound terribly late, but it is for me. And,
Works for the government.
Where is the 25? Where are we at on that?
hadn't started yet, Paul, because I had to finish the
They ain't even
24.
started field work, and you probably don't have a request.
I don't have a
yet.
request
So,
yet.
when we think about anticipating the delivery of that, and I just think it's good to be wide open on all this.
And I want to be.
Because, I think that the state legislature changed some things.
They did, but you've read it wrong just like I did the first time.
Okay,
And now, and he did too.
okay.
I don't want to give you a date. It's not going to be December 31st.
Right, I
Okay.
would figure that.
I won't write that down, man.
Right, don't write December 31st down. If we can get, first of all, and just a moment of personal privilege, I want to take a vacation, okay? Sometime after
It's
we,
not agreed upon.
sometime after we get this, sometime after we get the FY '24 audit done and the things that follow with that, I'm going to take a week off. Do you understand? But
So write that down, Frank. He's on vacation the 18th of October.
Okay, there we go.
My gosh, we're giving you Thanksgiving.
But I think knowing what we know about the things that caused us hiccups in FY '24, and even already with some of the processes we're changing, I'm looking at February, March issue date. It's kind of a realistic target for FY '25.
And discuss what we read wrong and how it's.
Okay,
yeah.
so the General Assembly passed a thing that says you can't, if you have 2 late audits, then they start cutting off some of your state shared revenue. And you saw that, and it's like scared everybody, because, Mr. Auditor, how many cities actually turn in an audit by December 31st?
Less than 50%.
Much less than 50%. And so, when we read that initially, we thought that the new statute said if you've got 2 consecutive late audits, they're gonna start yanking your state shared revenue. What it actually says is that if you have 2 late at the same time, and so if FY '24 were late and FY '25 were late, that would be when that provision would kick
FY
in.
'24 is still outstanding January 1, 2026.
Right,
That's right.
right. So you can be late 1 year
So,
Yeah.
at a time.
we got 2 months.
Yeah.
Got 2 months to get the
Yeah.
one that we're currently working.
We're gonna
on.
get it. Yeah.
October 17th.
This whole meeting is the only thing Frank heard.
That's right.
Locked in.
Right, so, no, it's funny because there is a parade of people who come by my office, about every week, and they stick their head in, how we doing? And I know what they're asking, because they've got things that there are several things that depend on the FY '24 audit being issued, and they don't care about it, they just want their money for the next thing.
Sure.
So,
Yes.
but I appreciate the whole team that we've got here, and also appreciate y'all. Jack, you've been helpful. Frank, you've been supportive. Paul has laughed at me quite a bit.
We'll get it going.
We're going, so,
Laugh through the tears.
that's right. Anything else?
So,
No, go ahead.
So one of the things you alluded to that we're anticipating is a large debt issuance
Mhm.
that is contingent upon this audit being finished.
Yes,
Assumption made that sometime in the mid-October, we get the audit. What are the next steps on the debt issuance?
we will go to ratings agencies at that point and have those conversations. Bond counsel and PFM are standing by, ready to do that. We made a commitment to city council that we would give them another chance to have a few conversations about this. And we'll take that to them, and I would very much like to have issued debt by the end of the calendar year, if we can.
Do you see this?
Matter of fact, it's a necessity, actually.
Do you see
Otherwise,
this group having any involvement in that?
I would hope that you would.
Okay, so I guess I'm trying to lay out back to a calendar,
Calendar, yeah.
right? So assumption made, we get it in October. That means in November, or end of October, right? Because we're having them at the end of the month. End of October, we're having conversations about the anticipated debt package.
Depending on what you guys would like to do, I can imagine sending you out updated information about what we've got, and also potentially asking you to come and sit around this table on a day that is not your normal day.
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
If that's,
Yeah.
because, I mean, I'm looking at you, and I know some of you well, and getting to know some of you better. You guys have got insights that will be useful to the council, and I think this is part of your job. And so, you know, I think it would behoove us to have your input and support or backing for whatever council decides to consider as well.
I'm looking at it from an information.
Right.
You know, you've provided me with the most recent spreadsheet.
Right.
And so just going through and analyzing that, I think there's information that could help our council make a good decision on some of this.
Mm-hmm.
And, but those conversations, I do agree. I think if you're gonna issue debt, there's some things that we're anticipating, from my understanding, or reimbursement on,
Mm-hmm.
that we were contractually obligated to do. We're pursuing those things, as limited as those may be. We need to have conversations about how to parse this thing out,
Right.
and what the most appropriate way to go about it is.
Yeah.
In my opinion, and how to communicate that to the council.
I agree with you.
Okay, that's my last question for the day.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. You'll get a litany of emails. So
Okay.
I'll-
Any other last questions? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Walk
Aye.
away.
Thank y'all.